Hey folks, this is going to be a relatively quick one, and I'm going to get quite mean-spirited, though hopefully you'll see why shortly. Recently, I was recommended a video titled How John Oliver Uses Comedy to Lie from a guy named Bill of the YouTube channel Who Even Cares at this point. That's not his actual name, I'm just, calling him that in the spirit of things. And I was immediately interested to see yet another attempt at debunking John Oliver that doesn't devolve into obscene levels of intentional stupidity like the last time we tried this. So let's hear what Bill has to say.
Hello, denizens. So, the insufferable John Oliver did a bit on Last Week Tonight last year on gender-affirming care and how it was benign wonderfulness. J.K. Rowling roasted him, and recently John did a whole show in response.
Okay. Word of advice to any human being out there who thinks that this is a good way to open your argument. If you're going to accuse somebody of being obnoxious, you should probably not take your accusation as a challenge to be infinitely worse. If you're going to go after John Oliver, who by all accounts is about 5 to 10% more annoying than the average guy, for being insufferable, don't give the general vibe that you're gearing up to explain to Batman that all it takes is one bad day. Now, I'm gonna skip about 2 minutes because most of this intro is waffling. He brings up Megan Fox at one point, slyly calls John Oliver evil, you know the drill. Let's get into the meat of this thing, keeping in mind that the purpose of this video, as stated in the title, is to explain how John Oliver lies using comedy.
I want to assure you that I will not use any similar disingenuous comedy writing techniques to squeeze laughs out at John's expense. Well, maybe just a little.
Oh, you're one of those. See, what Bill has done here is a rhetorical slip-up, really an unforced error of sorts, called admitting you have no principles. See, this video is about how John Oliver lies to you, which one can only presume is meant to be perceived as a bad thing, but he can't help but admit that he is gonna have to be a little disingenuous to make this whole thing work.
John's first example for ridicule was a female fencer. Why, that's the story everyone is going to be interested in. Are you sure about that? The story about fencing and not the one that's caused the stock ticker in the corner of your screen to go bright red like an inflamed hemorrhoid? Also, I challenge those anchors to tell me one thing about fencing. Besides, Lindsay Lohan did it against herself in the Parrot Trap. I don't think you can do it. He contrasts women's fencing with the plunging stock market because it's a dig at Trump. This is called juxtaposition. The insufferable John Oliver.
Okay, to translate all of that into human words for people, John criticized the right for overemphasizing a story about a trans fencer in the wake of significantly more serious issues. He, of course, did this because he is correct. A single trans person in a sporting event is just not national newsworthy. If you lunatics had a fucking argument, you'd be able to pull from, like, data or something and not simply point out every single trans person you happen to notice and demand the nation care. But you might think I've done something a bit odd here. Haven't I just cut this man off in the middle of his argument? Isn't he about to explain to us how what John has done here is a lie? I said sarcastically because he doesn't even attempt to do that. Yeah, he just, I guess correctly identifies what John just said as a common literary device, whines about John making dated references, and seemingly thinks he's really done something here. Not sure why you put this in a video about lying, but I suppose I don't identify as a retired sketch comedian.
Oliver then continued to hammer the Republicans and Trump with insults and invective. Okay, to be completely fair to Trump, I will say his understanding of women's issues is comparable to his understanding of foreign policy, domestic policy, trade, the economy, the concept of consent, human empathy, and all but one of his children's names. This is called a list joke because it is a rapid-fire list of implied or factual ironies ending with a punchline.
Wait a second, neither of those were lies either. Yes, he insulted Donald Trump. It's a comedy show, and Donald Trump is a pedophile. Yes, he made a list joke. It's a comedy show, and list jokes are sometimes funny. I thought you were here to use comedy techniques to explain how John Oliver is a liar. Were you planning on getting around to that? And of course, hopefully, the irony is not lost on you that this guy is claiming using jokes to insult someone is equivalent to lying about them, all while he tries desperately every 15 seconds to get in a good dig. You'll get there eventually, buddy.
Then he featured Lance Armstrong making the case that if Rafael Nadal had transitioned, he'd still beat any women on the tennis circuit. John, of course, made fun of Armstrong's less than stellar doping history. It's a cheap shot against Lance that I would also have gone for. Ignore the point Lance was making and make fun of the interlocutor. That is called deflection and something that John uses often.
Oh, finally, we're gonna try and prove our point. Thank God. Okay, so Bill would be correct if a significant portion of John's argument rested on discrediting Lance Armstrong's arguments by attacking Lance's credibility. But of course, it didn't, which you could easily verify by watching the segment. The reason John brings up this example, besides it being incredibly funny that the world's most famous sports cheater is trying the fairness in sports grift, is because it tells us something about the anti-trans movement, that they will claim certain values only to immediately ditch them when it is politically advantageous. If this movement cared about fairness in sports, Lance Armstrong would be poisonous. But of course, the TERFs don't care about fairness in sports, they just hate trans people, which is why his podcast for anti-trans sports activists is never short on guests. Oh, and if you were wondering if he goes back to the John's references are dated well, don't worry, he is still on that. You know what they say in the retired sketch comedian biz, if a joke bombs the first time, you should definitely repeat it constantly.
Really? You've now given us Lindsay Lohan, 1990 Chicago White Sox, and Mike Tyson references? What's next, John? A Gorbachev joke?
Now, I am about to show you a clip. I'm not going to give you the exact context because, trust me, you don't need it.
It is evident to anyone who has seen the absolute sardonic glee of trans winners, hurdlers many body lengths ahead of their female competitors, yelling fist pumping as they cross the finish line, Leah Thomas's horrific expressions, cyclists, Olympic boxers, anyone? None of these look like winning. They look like they hate women.
Okay, let's unpack whatever the hell that was. He believes it's obvious from the sardonic glee on trans competitors' faces that they must hate women. He even shows a couple of pictures as examples. Let's take a moment to look at those. No sardonic glee here. In fact, that just looks like a normal-ass sports photo, like the most normal sports photo. Oh, of course. Leah Thomas gave a peace sign and smiled, so obviously that's a sign of deep-seated misogyny. Seriously, he called that a horrific expression. You'd think that if there were all of these photos of trans women looking like athletic psychopaths, he'd be able to show, I don't know, one of them. Here are some cyclists who, again, are just making normal sports faces. What are we even doing here? And then a picture of Imane Khalif, because it's not a photo album of trans women without a photo of a cis woman. God, yeah, no, this guy is either incredibly fucking stupid or the worst liar on the planet, or perhaps both, I suppose. He's so desperate for epic gotchas against trans women that he has accidentally or otherwise proven the exact point that feminists have been making this entire time. Transphobia is so brain poisoning that it almost immediately translates into cis misogyny. These people are so dim-witted and dishonest that they cannot help but destroy their own theses without us trans activists having to even lift a finger. Anyhow, he lists some more comedy techniques, vaguely attempts to justify a couple of them, goes right back in for the "did you know that your jokes are out of date" bit a couple more times, I might add, and generally makes a cocaine-addicted toddler look like a chill, normal dude. Let's address a couple more moments in this dumpster fire and then go home.
He also used cis, if there was any doubt how far down the gender wang rabbit hole John has gone. Now there is no doubt.
He's so far down the transgenderist rabbit hole that he's using scientific terms now. For those of you who don't know, I am a chemist. I mean, I always feel weird saying that, but I am a grad student in chemistry, so I think it counts. There's my degrees blurred out somewhere up there. Today, I would like to show you just how bad the trans pipeline has got me. So in science, not every chemical bond is created equal. For instance, not all of them are capable of freely rotating like that. What that means is, even though in this instant, the orientation of these three substituents, in this case hydrogens, is not completely fixed, right? They can rotate around. So this hydrogen, or, imagine it's some other substituent, could be over here, could be here, could be here, etc. But again, not all bonds do that. For instance, this bond, this double bond, which makes this molecule what we call an alkene, is fixed, right? Double bonds can't rotate. And what that means is that these substituents here, right, their orientations inherently matter. And so there become multiple possible versions of this exact same molecule with the exact same bond connections. For instance, this molecule here is what we call the trans orientation. We call it that because the big groups, right, the non-hydrogens, are on opposite sides of one another, and of course the trans prefix refers to that fact. However, and this is gonna blow some dumb fucks' minds, we can take this exact same molecule, again, exact same chemical connections, and we can move it around just a little bit. We can reorient it. And now you'll notice that the big groups, these methyls here, they're on the same side. Now, I don't want to sound like a shrill trans activist as I say this, but this molecule is what we call cis. That's what this thing is, right? Because cis is the fucking opposite of trans, you dull motherfucker. John Oliver is using that word because it is the correct fucking word to use. Everybody understands that transgender refers to a specific category of people, and cisgender refers to the people outside of that category, as trans and cis have always been.
He does give us a new angle regarding Riley Gaines, the swimmer, who he says didn't suffer from her encounter in the pool with Leah Thomas because rather than becoming a dental hygienist, she is now a famous activist and speaker. Thank God for men taking trophies away from women. Who knew there was an upside to it?
Wait. Is that a misrepresentation I just detected in my comedy show? What Bill is attempting to imply here is that Leah Thomas won a race against Riley and or other cis women, and so therefore took a trophy that was rightfully theirs. Anyone, of course, who paid a lick of attention to this story here would know Leah and Riley tied, not for first place, mind you, nor for second or third or fourth for that matter, but for fifth fucking place. What he's actually referring to here is that for a photo op, Leah held the 5th place trophy while Riley held the 6th place trophy. Here is that photo op. Notice how the trophies look identical? I don't know, it's just interesting that Bill left that detail out, almost like he wanted you to assume something very different from what actually happened. But it's not like a guy who admitted he was going to be disingenuous from the start would do something like that, right? Yeah, wow, this guy is a moronic piece of shit. There's not really a whole lot else to say. Thanks for watching. Consider liking the video and subscribing to this channel, I guess. Glad that I got to damage your brains a little bit, and I don't know, same time next week.